Guys, I am done forgetting what I read. Anytime I discuss a book with one of my friends who's also read the book, I hear this comment a lot. Wow, man, you really remember a lot. Oh, you remember that too? I forgot. Guys, I was not born genetically blessed with a savant memory. I compiled all of the things that I've done to fully integrate books into my life. What are they? Let's get into them. First, there's a debate that we have to completely settle into your mind. Physical books or ebooks. See, ebooks have a lot of advantages. They're weightless, ship instantly, cheaper, better for the environment. Now, if that was all there was to it, then for me, that wouldn't be enough. See, I like the tactile sensation of a book, flipping through the pages, building up that trophy collection. So ultimately, it's just a matter of preference. However, there is one feature that completely obliterates the scales over to the side of digital books, makes it a complete no-brainer. Kindle highlights. You see, with highlights, I'm done churning through these books only to forget them 3 months later. With highlights, I can relive all the best moments of the book. I can control search if I miss the highlight. All of it is right there, a chronicle of my experience. Just so you understand how good these Kindle highlights are, you have to look back the old system that I used to use. Guys, I wanted a friction-free note-taking system, anything to get out of switching over to Kindle. Look at this chicken scratch. Look at these hieroglyphics. The Rosetta Stone can't track this. There's font running down the side of the page. I wanted something that was low friction. I figured I'd write on a bookmark. This was rotting in my closet. I have never, ever gone back to these. My highlights, they're living on my Kindle. I can access them right away, way easier than this note-taking system. Now, some of you might say, Brahim, but it's about the sentimentality. I form a bond with my book that I just don't see myself forming with a Kindle. Look, I hear you. I was an naysayer too, but let me be clear. This is not about the clericalization of your reading journey. This is about the immortalization of it. You see, when I'm highlighting things, it's not about capturing information. It's about capturing how the book made me feel. I'm highlighting things that sparked epiphanies, made me laugh. Guys, I've highlighted passages just because I thought the writing was particularly shitty. Neil sighed. When he did so, he made a whistling sound out of his nose. An ominous B flat. I am offended, disgusted. Now, when I look at my bookshelf, yes, I see a sense of pride of a completionist, but make no mistake, I don't relive these books. If I take a look at this book cover and I compare it to a set of 85 highlights over what it is that I read in the book, is there really a question as to which one is going to help me relive the experience of reading the book? And we're just talking pure nostalgia here. We haven't gotten to all the other unlocks that come with a digital, friction-free note-taking system. We'll get there, but I have to get you on this one point. These things have only gotten better. I recently upgraded from a 2016 Kindle to the new 2024, and guys, it's like upgrading from Windows 95 to a MacBook Pro. It is so much faster. This thing used to be like a quarter of an FPS. You could hear the engine revving. Now this thing's like a rocket going to the moon. You're going to be reading so fast. You've just finished the book and you have all these nuggets and highlights. It's now time to consolidate all of them into a book review to really give you that experience of the book in a very, very fast way. Now, to be clear, I am not talking about book summaries. I'm talking about book reviews. Book summaries are soulless, lifeless. A book summary written by this guy or that guy, it's going to be all the same. There's really not much utility in a book summary. A book review, however, a book review captures not the what, but the how and the why. Why did I pick this book up? How did I feel about it? Now, just for this to make sense, let's look at what happens if you don't do the book review. Not too long ago, one of my friends was asking for a book recommendation. He's like, Ibrahim, I'm looking for a book, something nonfiction, hopefully on the shorter side. That's what I'm looking for. Now, immediately I thought, I got the book for you, Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Super short book. Okay, this book was incredible. Everyone should read this book. Send it to your mom, send it to your grandma. Hang on. Guys, I was full on ready to recommend this book to my friend up until I pulled up my book review. And to hammer home this point, you have to understand that it's not just your memory of the book that's fallible. It's your memory of how you felt about the book that's fallible as well. And that is what the book review is meant to correct, the fallibility of your memory of how you felt about the book. Now, you might feel like you have a really concrete understanding of how you feel about the book. You just finished it after all, but 2 years, 3 years down the line, when the book's way back, you're just going to remember a little slice, a little moment. And so the book review is essential. If you haven't written a book review before, seeing a blank page can be daunting. It feels like a chore. This is going to take a long time. So I'm going to make this super simple. I've been writing book reviews for a long time. This is the art of what I have both found easy to write as well as most useful to recap. This is my book review for The Body Keeps the Score. What's important is not what I write, but the structure of the review. First thing, this was a difficult but invaluable read. Right away, I start with just a vibe check. If I had to review this book in a single sentence. Notice how I didn't describe what the book was about. Keep the description to the minimum. If people really had to, they could just read the back of the book. All right, the second section, expectations versus reality. What expectations did this book violate for you? You see, a lot of the studies that people usually cite, this guy is not some pop science journalist. He's the guy who did the pioneering studies that were the foundation for a lot of this. And so in that way, my expectations were violated because I'm used to reading pop sci books, and this is not your typical pop sci book. Section number 3, what are the key takeaways you're walking away from this book? It's not necessarily a violation of my expectations of what the book would be about or how it's written, but more about the content of the book. Lastly, I always finish off with who I'd recommend the book to. Again, very brief. And that's it. That's the structure. I like to write a lot. This could have been a lot shorter. It's up to you and how far you want to take it, but don't let the daunting page stop you from writing it at all. Now, the third thing that I want to talk to you about is using Anki to remember all of your highlights. Now, why is this important? I can't really explain it to you. It's something that I heard a while back. Yeah, I must have heard pretty compelling reasons for it because I'm a very skeptical person. It's not easy for me to believe something. You're just going to have to take my word for it. Now, be honest with me. Is that argument that you just heard now compelling? Are you going to settle for that lukewarm, half-assed, second-hand reasoning? No. So why is it that we do this to ourselves? If I can't explain why it is that I feel something and have conviction in it, I feel dirty. So what if there was a system that could help us fully integrate, and I mean seamlessly integrate everything and embed it into our long-term memory? That is where Anki comes in. Anki is a spaced repetition software. It's like a flashcard system where it reminds you of the card and has you study it just when you're on the cusp of forgetting it. Now, to all the grad students who've been traumatized by Anki before, I will win you over, okay? Just give me a minute. I'm going to have to bring everyone else up to speed. Once I'm done with a chapter, I'll go through all my highlights and see which highlights are the ones that I want to ingrain into my memory. Here's an example of a highlight. In an amusing acknowledgement, the author of a book called The Evolution of Parental Care said that his greatest debt is to my wife, who looked after our children while I wrote about parental care. This was amusing for me, which is why I highlighted it. However, I don't really care to memorize this. On the other hand, in one study of step-parents conducted in Cleveland, Ohio, only 53% of stepfathers and 25% of stepmothers claimed to have any parental feelings at all towards their stepchildren. The stepfathers actually performed better than the stepmothers when it came to having this sense of parental care. That defied my intuitions. I would not have expected that. So for that, I would want to make a card. This is a shocking find. Probably important to remember some context there. And boom, add that. Now to my deck. All right, now let's walk through an example of reviewing my Anki decks. How are the money lines by sport books often determined? They're actually done by hand. The algorithms are too slow and way too exploitable. Look at this. I'm reviewing this in 1 year. Why do women get pregnancy sickness? Because the baby's most susceptible to toxic foods in the first trimester. Yup. 3 months. Give it to me. Boom. And we're done. 8 cards in 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes in your day. Change your life, guys. All right, this next part is very important. So you see, Anki is notorious for crushing the souls of grad students, absolutely mercilessly burning them out. I'm not gonna let that happen to you. So how do we make sure that these decks stay stress-free? There's a few things you have to realize. First, these decks are not big. For you, you're used to getting 20 new cards a day. I have 20 new cards a book. These decks are small. Number 2, these cards are easy. You've read a whole book about this now. So you're gonna benefit from a massive forgetting curve. Look at the retrievability. Name better numbers. Show me your med school decks, language learning decks, law school decks. You're not topping my book review decks. I'm sorry. We look at these review intervals, 2.2 months. You're gonna see these cards just a few times a year. And finally, these cards are for you. There's no exam here. So if you're not happy with the cards that you're seeing, suspend them immediately. To get rid of any final skepticism out there, let me just show you my stats. Here's Future Due. In this month, average 2 cards a day. You have time for 2 cards a day. Change your life. Why would I let my books wither away when this is all I need? Minutes a day. You know what's a real waste of time? Reading a whole book, 10 hours, 15 hours, however long it takes you to read. I'm a slow reader. Reading all that only to let it slip away. Why would I do that to myself? Now, Anki decks are awesome. An absolute magic bullet for ingraining into your memory what it is that you read. But what about fully integrating a book into my life to really let the lesson seep in and take action? Well, we're going to get to that, but before that, I want to tell you about my must-read list. These are books that I think are phenomenal, that have the potential to change your life, major ROI. And as I look through this list, at some point, I noticed that there was a common thread between a lot of these books. And that one thing is having a list of action items at the end of each chapter. The best example I have of this is a book called I Will Teach You How to Be Rich. Talk about a book that's like a $20 investment that has probably made me thousands of dollars across my life. You see, I graduated, I had no idea, nothing about personal finance. I didn't have a budget. I didn't know anything about money. I couldn't even pronounce FICO score, interest rates, credit cards, all that stuff. I was lost. I had no clue. But the book, not only did it teach me about personal finance, but after I finished all the action items at the end of every chapter, by the end of the 6 weeks, I certainly felt secure in my finances. Now, once I noticed this trend, I was like, I'm going to look for actionable books that have these action items, these to-do lists, something that I can implement immediately. I tried this, but this is not an easy query to look for. I want a super specific and highly applicable book that are specifically about sales. First one, How to Win Friends and Influence People. This classic book isn't about sales per se. Look, I was furious. Why would you start off a list with a highly specific and applicable books on sales with a book that's not about sales? This brings us to point number 4, which is to create your own action items as you go through a book. See, I was done waiting for a publisher. Now I run into little nuggets. I put it on a to-do list on my phone so that way it's captured right there. And come the end of the week, when it's time to plan out my week, I'll start dragging in some of the to-dos throughout the week to get these things done. And that's how I get the action into my life. Now, to their credit, a lot of books do have these action items, but it doesn't entice that same craving for me. All right, guys, so for me, when I see something like this, practice, schedule your low quality leisure, this heading, I'm just going to skip right through. I'm going to start reading. This to me is not necessarily a to-do item. This is, food for thought. If we compare that to an actual end of chapter action steps, hey, do this. It's going to take you 1 hour. Do this. It'll take you 3 to 5 days. And then we move on to the next chapter. It hits different. It's just completely different. So not every book is going to be conducive to having an action item list, which brings us to our final point. Having a daily journaling prompt based on your book. Now, I'll admit this is not something I've done a lot. I've only done it once, but it was so pivotal to how it is that I experience a book that I have to pass it on. It happened when I was reading a book called The 5 Invitations. This book is a meditation on death. I don't know how actionable it is. I'm not in a hospice. I'm not currently dying. So what I instead opted for was having a set of daily journaling prompts. And I was shocked at how much revisiting the same prompts daily change it. Guys, you'd think that journaling about something once, you get it out of your system, but I was having new things revive each time. And having that checkpoint at the end of the day where I'm going to have to review my day through the lens of what it was that the book was imparting on me, that helped me really see the ideas and get them to click for me. Now, this is a technique that I see being most useful for books that are a bit more emotional in nature, meant to impart certain wisdoms, or some books that are just rapid fire. Like The War of Art, guys, there's chapters here that are just 2 paragraphs long. It's not the kind of book that you binge. So journaling prompts, it's not something that I would do for every book that I read, but for the right book in the right season of life, I would definitely go for it. These 5 things are going to change your reading forever. I know you want the Kindle. Get the Kindle. Start writing those book reviews. Send me the link so I can read them too. Next is the Anki. Download Anki. It's free, bro. Bro, it's free. Start making the action items list. Last one, the daily journaling. I'm on a mission to do this for a few books this year. Read books, but more importantly, remember the books that you read. Take care.